Hello and welcome to Andy's Bet Club. It's another episode and we'll be putting together a bet builder for this weekend's game between Arsenal and Chelsea. I'm Joe and I'll be joined for this episode by two of our Andy's Bet Club writers and experts. A very warm welcome to Rob. How you doing?
Very well, Joe. Very well. Excited for this one. Massive game. And me and Ramis have got some things to sort out after being one off last time.
Yep. And Ramis, welcome to the show. Chelsea fan, a bit more personally invested in this game, I presume.
Yeah, unfortunately so. I'm less excited for this game from a personal point of view. We haven't won at the Emirates in the Premier League since 2021. That was under Tuchel. So, yeah, Arsenal have been getting the better of us, obviously, most recently in that EFL Cup semi-final. So, yeah, from a personal point of view, I'm not the most optimistic.
Well, I think we can lean into that this week because, listener, we are going to aim for slightly higher odds than we normally would in our bet builder, trying to aim a bit closer to the 9s and 10s to 1s rather than the 4s that you may be used to on this podcast. But we will give you a standout single, one that we think has those kind of odds that you're used to, that's a little bit shorter in case you want to, just not take too much of a risk. That'll be later on in the show. But for now, let's get into our 4-leg bet builder for this game.
So this doesn't want to come across recency bias, but we're going to take a Victor Gyökeres selection. We're going 3+ shots at 1.62. I think I kind of speak for everyone when I would say we were mightily impressed with him last week. It did seem like the first time that we saw the Victor Gyökeres that we thought Arsenal were signing. I do think some of the criticism around him has been slightly harsh. He's scored 15 goals already for Arsenal, which is a pretty good return when you stack it up against other signings like Ekitike and so on. He's outscored these only marginally, and granted with more minutes, but I think it felt like the first time they've really used him to his potential and for what he is actually good at. If you get him in that left-hand channel against defenders, he can be absolutely devastating, as we saw even not just with his goals, but some of the early chances he had when he was kind of committing players. And if he gets on the shoulder of someone, there's just no chance that they're stopping him. Now his average is a little bit lower than the 3 we're looking for at 2.13 per 90, but he's coming into this game obviously with a lot of confidence. He had 4 shots at the London Stadium last week. Sorry, not London Stadium, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Had 4 shots, obviously netted twice. So coming into this should be red hot, really. And I think, obviously, as kind of Ramis has put the doom on Chelsea, I think we're expecting Arsenal to have plenty of the ball, have plenty of the game. And also, just looking back through Gyökeres' numbers, I would expect from here that we will see an increase in his averages overall. But when he's played 65 minutes or more, this has landed more than half of the time. So I would expect him, to play close to 90 minutes. And if he doesn't, I think the beauty here is that the super sub's in play. And a very likely replacement is probably someone like Gabriel Jesus, who actually averages the most shots in the entire Arsenal squad at just over 4. Granted, again, from a smaller number of minutes, but it's a pretty good replacement to come on if we're needing one more shot with not too long to go.
Yeah, Ramis, that Tottenham performance in particular just feels atrociously timed for you going into this game, right? That's
don't give him more doom, Joe. He's already a man on the edge from the start.
But you can understand why Rob's gone with this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think that people have been a bit too harsh on Gyökeres. I feel like the internet a little bit has got a bit carried away with, he's not the most polished player in the world, but to be a good striker, you don't necessarily need to be. He also scored against us in that EFL Cup semi-final that I mentioned at Stamford Bridge, and that was when his confidence was really low. And I always think with strikers, it's about the most recent game for them. It's about the form, and those 2 goals against Tottenham will give him loads of confidence here.
Do you think he's maybe escaped the Timberland boots meme for at least a little while?
For now.
Maybe till next week.
For now, at least, yeah. We'll be back on here next week, giving him a load of grief.
Him.
Yeah.
All right, so that's first on the bet builder, Victor Gyökeres to have 3+ shots in this game. Ramis, what's our second pick?
We've gone for the Chelsea goalkeeper, so Rob Sanchez, to make 3 or more saves at 1.57. Now, I'm very defensive about Rob Sanchez. I feel like he gets so much stick from people that don't really watch him. I feel like every time he makes a mistake, everyone knows about it. It's magnified. People saying, Chelsea can't ever compete for big trophies with Rob Sanchez. But I think all of that is a bit, it's noise, in my opinion, because for me, Rob Sanchez has been, I saw a take the other day that he's been Chelsea's best player this season. I thought about it a little bit, and I can see why someone would make that take. He's averaging 2.71 saves per 90, so a little bit below the line we need here. But he has made 3 or more saves in 3 of his last 5 Premier League appearances. He also made 3 saves when Chelsea got a 1-1 draw against Arsenal in the initial league meeting, and he was actually probably the reason that Chelsea got a point in that game. All the saves he made were top saves. Also last season, Rob Sanchez ended the year with the joint highest save percentage in the Premier League, 73.6. That was alongside Mark Flecken. So he has been performing pretty well for Chelsea. I just feel like sometimes his mistakes are magnified. I think he's actually pretty good with the ball at his feet, but because Chelsea are so insistent on playing out from the back, and also I don't think the back line does him too many favours either. I think he'll be important here because Chelsea's young team, I've seen them, for the last 2 or 3 years, they struggle in these big environments. I remember a couple of years ago under Pochettino, we went to the Emirates and we got battered 5-0, and there is that chance that it could happen again because Chelsea's young team, they do have that ability to collapse. But Sanchez is one of the more senior players in the side. In Chelsea's comeback against West Ham recently, you saw him at half-time kind of like geeing up the fans, telling them to stay with the team. So I think he's going to be an important figure here, and I do think he gets a bit more stick than he probably deserves.
On your point about the defence maybe not doing him as many favours as they could, being a bit younger and inexperienced, I guess, Rob, what also works is that, if this game is going to be the kind of dynamic that we're expecting in terms of Arsenal pressure generally, it doesn't even necessarily require an outstanding Sanchez performance to be kept busy and to be requiring saves and all kinds of stops as he's trying to just stop the hordes of Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think saves is always a good angle in games like this, and I think there will be times where we'll see Chelsea try and, just keep Arsenal around the edge of the box. And although they are quite an intricate football inside, we've seen that they are happy to let shots go. And I think if you're going to have Eze play and you've got Gyökeres in competence, obviously score from outside the box against Tottenham, I think you've got to hope that your goalkeeper's saving a lot of shots from those areas. And I will imagine Chelsea will try and funnel them into, easy positions for Rob Sanchez to save.
Okay, then that's pick 2. Chelsea goalkeeper, presumably Robert Sanchez, to make 3 or more saves. Rob, what's our third pick?
So I'm going for the largest pick of our bet builder here, which is going to be a Moises Caicedo card at 2.8. I think in big games, he's a real go-to of mine. We know what he's all about. He's combative, he's tough tackling, he's also, known to go a little bit over the top sometimes, as he did in the previous league meeting with that quite ridiculous challenge, you would say, on Mikel Merino. But it's no change of pace for Caicedo. He's had 8 yellow cards this season and that red card. I was looking back throughout his Premier League career. In his last 132 games, he's had 41 yellow cards. 41 cards, sorry. So 40 yellows and 1 red, which, is nearly 1 every 3 games, which is about as good as you're going to get for a cards record, really. He's gone into double figures in I think, his last 3 seasons. And yeah, in big games like this, he absolutely loves it. And he's averaging it's 1.69 fouls per 90 minutes as well. So, sometimes it's those big kind of crunching tackles, but a lot of the time it is him just niggling away at people in the middle of the park. And then also we're thinking Eze is going to start here after the really good performance at Spurs, which is a bonus for this bet because he's fouled 1.64 times per 90, which is the highest in the Arsenal team outside of Bukayo Saka and, people with kind of obscure data like Max Dalman. So I think, yeah, it's a surprise to me that he is not the shortest player to be carded here. It's Malo Gusto, I think, purely based on the matchup with Saka. But, I think there's always just safety in going with what maybe feels like an obvious pick the most carded player on the pitch, really. But, yeah, in these big games, I'm sure, I think Caicedo's exceptional, as I'm sure Ramis does as well. But, this is a part of his game. And, I think you've got to like it in a way, but it's great for a bet, isn't it?
Yeah, Ramis, we've had a little while of Liam Rosenior now. It's not reined it in at all with Caicedo. You wouldn't, and it would be unwise to try and move him away from that approach, that style that has picked up lots of cards, but definitely served Chelsea well at the same time.
Yeah, I've actually been a little bit disappointed with Caicedo over the last couple of months. I think he's been a bit sloppy, if I'm honest. I think the rashness is a part of
Ramis, just made me look bad for saying I was trying to give you some positivity there, mate, and you just straight back to doom and gloom.
I just have high expectations of him, Rob. That's what it is. I just think that, if people are going to call you the best holding midfielder in the world, I think you've got to live up to that. And I just think he's been a little bit sloppy, partially with that disciplinary record that Rob mentioned. I think he picks up way too many yellow cards. He gives away silly fouls. And I think part of that, as you mentioned with Rosenior has shown a liking to Andre Santos, who he worked with at Strasbourg. But I think Santos and Caicedo together is quite a chaotic pairing. I don't think either of them can really put the foot on the ball and control the game. So I think that actually lends to both of them being at risk, especially Caicedo of a card.
Well, very interesting. We'll put it in, and that leaves us with one more selection for our four-leg bet builder on this episode. Ramis, what is our final selection?
Yeah, our final pick is Reece James to have one or more shots at 1.57. As I mentioned, last time Chelsea won at the Emirates in the Premier League was back in 2021. Reece James actually scored. Lukaku scored. Very interesting fact about that game. Only Reece James and Trevor Chalobah of that Chelsea squad are still with the team. Arsenal had a centre-back pairing of Rob Holding and Pablo Mari, which probably tells you how far they've come as well. But yeah, it's obviously completely changed. But for Reece James today, I think he's been very consistent this season. I think Chelsea have managed him quite well. I think Maresca actually did a pretty good job in implementing that plan for him to kind of get back to fitness. And now his minutes are managed. He doesn't really play more than 2 games a week. He has been moved back out to right back by Rosenior, as I mentioned, that he likes Andre Santos in there, probably because he just understands what he wants from the team a bit more. But one thing I've noticed with Rosenior, he's a very modern manager. He doesn't stick to the sort of shape that you see on paper. Like if Chelsea look like they're going to line up in a 4-2-3-1, it probably won't be that. It'll be some variation of 3 centre-backs and then a mixed match in midfield. And I think Reece James will be a part of that. He's had 16 shots across his 17 Premier League starts this season. It's about 0.89 per 90. But one of the most interesting things about that is 13 of those have come from outside of the box, which I think could actually play to our advantage. If you think about how Arsenal like to play, when they take the lead in games, they don't often go for the kill. I know they did a little bit against Tottenham, but really across the season as a whole, they have tended to sit back when they get in front, and I can see that happening. So as much as I don't think Chelsea will be able to fully impose themselves on Arsenal, I can see periods in the game where Arsenal are a bit deeper and then Chelsea may get those opportunities to shoot from range. He did have one shot against Arsenal when the sides last met earlier in the season. He was playing in midfield that day and actually put on a proper masterclass. Everyone was talking about Caicedo and Rice heading into it, but James was the best player on the pitch. So he's so well-rounded, James. I actually think sometimes he is a bit wasted if you just keep him at right back. I think he could play anywhere on the pitch, to be honest. So yeah, from that point of view, I think he's a good option for a shot in this game.
A glowing endorsement of Reece James there. Thanks, Ramis. And that completes our 4-leg bet builder. Let's have a quick recap. That is Victor Gyökeres to have 3 or more shots. Chelsea goalkeeper, we're hoping Robert Sanchez to have 3 or more saves. And Moises Caicedo card. And that again, a Reece James 1+ shot selection. That brings us to combined odds of 10.77 on Paddy Power, where we're doing the bet. You can follow us in on the show notes of your podcast. We've got a link there where you can activate that bet builder with us. Of course, if you'd like to tailor into something different, you've got a few ideas of yourself, we've got a lovely tool on andysbetclub.co.uk/bet-builder, and you can make your own bet builder there. As I said at the start of the show, though, you might want to just focus on one selection that's a little bit more risk-averse, a little bit more sure. Our standout single. Which one are we going with, Rob?
We're going with the Moises Caicedo card. There's a couple of reasons for that. I think the price just suits it at 2.8. It makes sense as a single. I think one of the things with it as well was the fact that, as I said before, I was surprised he isn't the shortest odds. So I think there's just worth a go there. And also recently, touched on his card record over his career. He's actually had 6 cards in his last 16 games, which is, it's just a bit mad, really. And after Ramis is just, there we go.
Our sloppy standout single.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Maybe we won't stick to that for future shows as a name, but yeah, we're going with that one as a single. And I think if you're putting any, probably a good game for a card bet on its own, I think he's a great addition to any doubles or singles that people are fancying.
Well, there you go. Plenty of options for you, depending on how you want to go. Hopefully you join us on our 4-leg bet builder. And thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you subscribe to Andy's Bet Club on your podcast app so you don't miss any more episodes. We'll be back with a episode for Newcastle versus Manchester United in that midweek round of Premier League games. But for now, good luck and goodbye.